all I knew is the woman on the phone was very clear about DNA is DNA. And you don't share a parent with your two siblings. You share only one parent.
Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I am your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for Not Parent Expected or Non-Paternal Event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. Welcome to episode 123. I just got back from an amazing weekend, a Hiraeth Hope and Healing retreat that was built specifically for NPEs, adoptees, and there were also donor-conceived individuals and late discovery adoptees in attendance. I will put the link for these retreats in the show notes. But Hiraeth Hope and Healing, they brought in, well, first of all, we're just at this beautiful house on the shore. I think about 25 of us were in attendance, and they brought in facilitators, they brought in other NPEs and doctors and drummers and meditators. We had a wide variety of what I would call healing sessions, and there was great food, and it was so nice, even though I was with strangers, to just be with 25 people who were immediately nodding their head. I wouldn't even have to give too much backstory. They got it. They just knew what I was feeling and what I was experiencing. I would recommend, if you are somewhere in your healing journey, you look into one of these healing retreats. They have another one in the summer, another one in the fall of 2022, and then they even have some on their website up for 2023 as well. I believe they just opened information on some of those houses. And they're all over the United States. Eve Sturges was there. If you listen to her podcast, Everything's Relative, I finally got to meet her in person. She's been on the podcast. She gave a really great session, a writing session, where we had to write one moment in our DNA surprise, just one moment that popped into our head. And then she took us through an exercise with that. It was amazing. I actually have an extra copy of her journal she just brought out. She just created a journal called Who Even Am I Anymore? Created by Eve Sturges. It is a process journal for the adoptee, late discovery adoptee, donor-conceived, NPE and NPE community. I have an extra copy. I will gladly mail this to someone. I'm going to put a post on Facebook for episode 123, Susan O's story, and comment on this post. Comment anything you want about this episode. You can even just say, I'm here, and I will go through all the people that comment on the post on the Facebook page for NPE Stories, and I'll do a random number generator, and I'll pick one of the commenters and send them this amazing journal that Eve Sturges created for us. Also this weekend, we played a hilarious edition of Cards Against Humanity. I think that's what it's called. But someone had brought a DNA edition. So Danny, from Danny's Story, previously this season, she made her own Cards Against Humanity. Is that what it's called? Citizen? I don't know. I think you might have heard of this board game or this card game, but she came up with this hilarious DNA edition, which had cards full of inside jokes that only people that have experienced a DNA surprise would understand. And we mixed them in, and it was completely hilarious. So, Danny, if you're listening, maybe you need to market those and sell them to our little NPE community, because sometimes we need a little laugh to get through this. And I will actually speak more about the film we watched, Reckoning with the Primal Wound, next week, next episode, because it deserves a few more minutes of mention. And I met the filmmaker this weekend, who is an adoptee, Rebecca Autumn Sampson, and I don't want to rush it. So there was so much great information I learned. All right, people listening, you are listening to this podcast because you're here to listen to an NPE story. And we have an NPE with us, Susan O. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Lily.
Thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Thanks for having me.
And I try not to look too much into people's backstory. Are you an NPE or LDA, DCP?
I don't know what an LDA is.
Oh, I'll explain it. That one. So, an LDA is a late discovery adoptee. They usually have found out late in life as an adult, usually through a DNA test, that they weren't related to one or, well, usually both of their parents in the case of an LDA. Sorry, I use these acronyms because I'm I'm in this world, but
That's okay. I think I'm supposed to be like under the area of donor conceived.
oh, really? Okay, I will make sure and put that keyword in. We don't have a lot of donor conceived stories. Oh, we had another Susan in season 1, and this is season 3, episode 123. So, why don't we go ahead and start with your family of origin and a little bit about your childhood?
So I'm in Canada, so I am close to Toronto. And I was raised in Toronto, the youngest of 7 kids, a Jewish family. My parents, so I'm the youngest, so my older siblings have a lot more memory of our childhood, I think, than I do, or they have different memories. But my my parents divorced, and who I thought was my father left when I was 2. So after I was born, and I think the story is that, and I think I remember everyone talking about how unhappily married they were. And they broke up when I was 2. And then we all stayed with my mom, and we had very little contact with who I thought was my father. He moved to another city and then moved over to the UK. And I have a memory of him when I'm 16, and then he came back into my life and passed away about 10 years ago. But I spent the last few years with him because he was ill, and I still thought that he was my father. And we mended our relationship, and it was really healing. And maybe he died about 12 years ago. My mom remarried to my stepfather, who I had a good relationship with, and then they got divorced when I was in my 20s. Um, but I always thought I was who I thought was my father. His name's Norman. I always thought that I was Norman's daughter. I thought that I was one of the kids that looked like him. Who I thought was my dad had like red hair and freckles, and I have like auburn hair and freckles. So I was one of the kids that people thought looked like dad, where my mom has black hair and some of my siblings have like really black hair and look like my mom. People always thought I looked more like my dad. And so I had a very difficult relationship with my mom and still do. I would say my mom, so I'm a therapist by trade. I would say that my mom is a difficult person to get along with. She, as a mom, she was very much, so as the youngest, I watched 4 of my siblings get kicked out of the house. I think most of us as 7 kids had a difficult relationship and still do. Um, and I tried to be really good growing up because you're either exactly what she wants, like you try to be very good, or if you have any rebellion or any difficulties, most of us got kicked out. So I got kicked out when I was 16. And then after that, had an on again, off again sort of relationship with her. When I had my daughter, we got a little bit closer for a couple of years. And that was 23 years ago. Probably for like the last 16 or 17 years, have had no relationship with my mother. Um, I think at some point it became like obvious to me that it was harder to have her in my life than not have her in my life. So
Yep.
um, I don't have a relationship with her. Um, and I'm lucky enough to have 6 siblings that I was raised with, and we have a really good, all of us have a good relationship. They're all really loving and healthy, and I feel very fortunate to have the
Mm.
siblings that I grew up with. Um, yeah, so I feel really fortunate
Mm.
about that.
Nice.
Yeah. So I have a 23-year-old daughter who's amazing, and a 17-year-old stepson. And I'm remarried after a divorce many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's great that you have such a wonderful relationship with your siblings. How about them? Just out of curiosity, how about them to your mother? Are any of them also estranged, or are they still keeping a
Yeah.
relationship?
My 2 oldest brothers have a relationship with her. I don't know if they're smooth, but they do have a relationship with her. And my sister in Israel, because I have a sister in Israel, has a relationship with her. But then the rest of us, the other 4, have no relationship with her.
Mm.
Yeah. Where like we've just all had our own difficult stories.
Yep.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. We're the 4 that got, well, I think 5 of us really got kicked out. But for my sister in Israel now, I don't think it's difficult to have a relationship with someone when you're so far away.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been able to maintain a relationship. Yeah.
I can't imagine kicking out not only 1 but 5 of your children.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Ouch.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's so funny because I've said this story to like, not in so much detail, but I've said this story in many different ways to people because I'm pretty open. But all of a sudden today, I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's just like a little bit more intense or a bit more, a
Daunting.
little
Yes.
bit, feels a bit weird. Yeah.
Yes, and we're not
Yeah.
in person, so you can't see me nodding along, and
Yeah.
this is recorded, and it's not like we're having a private conversation at a coffee shop. And so there's always that fear of, is a certain member of my family going to listen to this and cause problems for me?
Yeah. Yeah. Or I don't want to cause problems for them.
Or I don't want to cause problems with sharing the truth. I
Yeah.
know. I get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I first, I started finding all of this out in January of 2018. It's been a while, right? Like over 4 years ago. Yeah. Um, so my oldest sister, Leah, who's very open and I can say her name, asked me to do a DNA test with her. One of the ones that were at a lab, not Ancestry or 23andMe, but a blood test, like at a lab. Or I don't know if it was a blood test, actually. It might have been a saliva test, but you had to go into a lab. Because my sister has like olivey skin and doesn't really look like any of us. And so she thought, she's 3rd out of 7, but she thought she might be from a different father. And so she asked me because I look like my dad. So she was like, can you, so my 3, like me and my 2 sisters got together and had wine one night and like did this test and went and got it all done. And it came back as 70% sure that we only shared one parent. And so I said to my husband, like, maybe she's right. It's a 70%. And when I called the company, they said they want their clients to be more sure, and I could add another sibling for no extra cost. So I was called my brother, one of my brothers, who's also one of the kicked out ones. And And I was like, can you get at it? And he's like, absolutely. And then that test came back that they were full siblings and I wasn't. And I just felt like I was punched in the stomach. And I remember calling the company and yelling at the lady on the phone. And she was so nice. I think I swore. And I was like, there's no way that I am not my father's daughter. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I know this is hard. And she was just lovely. But it started this whole thing. I just could not believe it. Yeah.
Oh, that must have been shocking.
It was so, I remember going up to my supervisor because I had a client that was supposed to come. And I just said, I just found out my dad's not my dad. It was just like going up to my supervisor who I'm, friends with. I've known her for a long time, but she said, oh, do you want to go home? And I was like, yeah. And then I drove to my sister's house and I got lost on the highway. Like I got off at the wrong, like I'd gone to my sister's place a million times, but I was so disoriented that I got off like in a different city and like had to get back on the highway. And, one of my brothers met me there. And I think one of my other brothers was on video and we kind of had this family meeting. But it wasn't easy because one of my brothers, who was one of the ones that talked to my mom, didn't believe it and felt, and I didn't really believe it either. Like it was shocking, but he didn't believe it in a way that he found it like offensive and that I was accusing my mom of something. And I actually wasn't accusing my mom of anything. I was just saying our DNA doesn't match properly, period. So what is that? And I do a lot of couple counseling with people, and I certainly realized that like marriage is difficult, and I knew that they were unhappily married, so I wouldn't have been totally shocked if somebody had an affair. But I wasn't necessarily accusing my mom of having an affair. I actually had never thought my mom would have an affair. But I didn't understand. All I knew is the woman on the phone was very clear about DNA is DNA. And you don't share a parent with your two siblings. You share only one parent. And so, it just, my head was spinning. I was like, I don't know what that means, but what I mean is that I'm not a full sibling with these two. So something's out of order. Like something isn't right. And then I had already given my daughter Ancestry for Christmas, and I bought 2 kits, but we weren't going to do the DNA part of Ancestry. We were just going to do the cultural background because that's all my daughter wanted to know. And so I called Ancestry and asked them to join to add on the DNA matches. And then, of course, like a month later or whatever, I got the matches. And those had 2 half nephews that I didn't recognize on my list. One at 23andMe and one of Ancestry. And so out of those, like, became this journey, and I bet everyone does it, this constant, like, addiction to, like, figuring out, or I think most people do it, this figuring out who are these people. And someone online told me to make a tree out of every close contact, in which I did. I started like morning, noon, and night making my own tree, making trees out of every close contact I didn't recognize, seeing if they connected to each other, getting people on Facebook to help me. I had several people like help me until a certain point, and then they couldn't figure it out with me. And then I had one amazing woman who I didn't understand that people volunteered to help. It was just so lovely. This woman, Annette, who became like really a good friend of mine, that for 2 years just was like, I'm not giving up on this. I don't understand what's happening, but I'm not giving up. And it like made me like tearful that she would say that she's not giving up on me. Like she was just, it was so emotional. Back to my mom a little bit. I tried to contact her. I emailed her. I sent her a registered letter. I emailed her a few times and said like, I just basically said like, you're still my mother, and I'm like begging you to tell me the story. Like, can you please tell me how I'm not from my dad's DNA? Like, I'm confused. I don't know. And try to be as vulnerable and nice as possible. Like, really from like, you're still my mom. I'm still your daughter. I hope you're well. I really need to know my story. And she just ignored me. She ignored the registered letters. She ignored the emails. One of my relatives told me that she was talking to her, and my mom laughed and said it was funny that I thought I had a different dad. And I'm like, the laughing part. I was like, it felt so insensitive.
Yeah. Mm.
Right? Like I'm like, what? And then I asked my sister Cheryl, who we're very close also, to also join Ancestry and 23andMe. And her and I ended up being full sisters. So she's number 6 and I'm number 7. So all of the rest of them, my sister in Israel hasn't been tested, but she's in the middle of them. I think it's just me and my sister Cheryl that are from a different father. And then the first 5 were from my father. And so I'm trying to picture it like, okay, so if it's an affair, it would have had to be a long affair. And who was the affair? Like, and the trees that I was making on Ancestry didn't make sense. Like the people, like there's a lot of people, but the 2 closest people, my 2 nephews, they didn't connect. Like,
they are siblings.
They're trees they're created trees, because one of them had a really good tree. He eventually blocked me, but that's why, I knew his relatives and all the people on his trees, and none of those people were on my list. So none of them, like when I had Ancestry people, angels trying to help me, they're like, something doesn't line up properly. And then I tested like one of the nephew's aunts, one of the nephews, like I got in touch with people there was a few people that were really kind. And I really hoped she would have been my half sister. And she came up as a distant relative, because there's so much intermarriage with Jewish people that it's a small pool of people. But she was not a close relative, so that was the wrong branch. One day, my friend Annette, who was helping me, was on one of the Ancestry sites, and 2 other Ancestry angels that work together contacted her and said, hey, you look stuck with this case. Do you want help? And she said, absolutely. And they were people that were familiar with the Jewish pool of people, Ashkenazi Jews. And the one woman called me, and she's like a 22-year-old student in Ottawa, who's brilliant. And I couldn't believe how young she was. And she said, I've never not solved a case within 48 hours, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. And we had this really amazing conversation on the phone. She asked me every question in the world. And then she said to me, there's always, like, it's almost always someone a family knows of, like that there's a link somewhere. And when you built all your trees, did you see anyone that looked familiar? And like any names that looked familiar? And I was like, I was talking to a first cousin that came up, and in her tree and in a couple of the other trees was the doctor that delivered me. And I knew his name because he was on my birth announcement. And also he was in our life. Like he came to all our bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. My mom had him light I don't know if your listeners have been to bat mitzvahs or bar mitzvahs, but usually you bring up important people to the child that's being bat mitzvahed or bar mitzvahed, and they light a candle for that child. And he was in all of our bar bat mitzvahs lighting a candle, including mine. And so he came to all of our occasions. I'm pretty sure he was at some of my siblings' weddings. He was for sure at all of our bar and bat mitzvahs. And so I said that like he was on the tree, but he was really old. Like he was born in 1906. And he was like 30 or 40 years older than my mother. And so I said, like, or no, maybe, yeah, like 30 years older than my mother. So I was like, he was a different generation. And so I never looked at him. And so she called me back in half an hour and said, that's your dad. There's no way. As soon as we put him in as your dad, every single relative lines up.
Oh.
And now he passed away in 89. So, you know, long gone. And so, but then when I asked my older siblings, there were all these stories like, we watched the Santa Claus parade one year on a Sunday in his office because he had a office downtown Toronto and you could see the Santa Claus parade. And I just started thinking they had a weird relationship. Like, certainly not just a doctor-patient relationship.
Yep.
Like sort of a weird, I didn't get the feeling that my mother and him had a thing, but I got the feeling that they had a closeness. Like I remember her saying to me that he like helped her have children and that he delivered us and that she always seemed very grateful to him. Like he was really, we grew up knowing that this doctor was a cherished person for my mother. He was a very popular doctor in Toronto. All of my cousins were delivered by him. I talked to one of my aunts who didn't like him. And in fact, there's been a few people that I've come across that have said he was really stern and not a warm doctor. Anyway, so that was interesting because I've been, of course, trying to find out what he was like.
Yeah.
A bit of his history. And he raised 4 children. One passed away, like, I don't know, several years ago. And then one passed away last year. And then I have a half brother that he raised in Toronto and a half sister that he raised in Toronto. But neither of them have wanted contact. And then the 2 half nephews that I found online, the people that have helped me said there's no other way of looking at this except that their mothers were both conceived in Toronto. And both of their mothers had infertility issues, or they think they did. So the idea would be that they're probably from this doctor also, because both of their mothers would have to be my half siblings because they come as nephews. And both of their mothers are born in Toronto. So that's what we're assuming that they're, but when I've tried to talk to the nephews, they've both said, you know, our parent, one of them blocked me and I actually did talk to the half sister, but then at some point she asked me to contact her again. And the other one who's in California said that his mother had no interest in knowing more.
So your biological father was your mother's doctor.
Yes. So a couple of things. Who I thought was my father, my birth certificate father, had told one of my brothers, and he was remarried and he's widowed, like she's widowed, like his wife is still alive, my stepmother, as his widow. And I talked to her about it too. And both of them heard the same story of my father said that one time him and my mom had an argument and she said to him near the end of their marriage in the heated argument that Susie and Cheryl probably aren't his. And So when my mom was questioned about that, she said something like, we were in an argument. It's not true. But it's awfully coincidental to pick us two and say we probably aren't his when you have 7 children. I do think my mom knew. I don't know exactly what happened, obviously, but she did tell someone that one of my siblings told her about it. And she said that my father and her were having a hard time conceiving, that the doctor told her to bring in a sample of my father's sperm, and that he artificially inseminated her with my father's sperm. And her view is that she's surprised because she thought it was my father's sperm. I don't think it really lines up. I don't think my father was clear that he didn't want 7 kids. My mom wanted more kids. He didn't. So I am very skeptical of the fact that he would have, like in the 60s, had to give a sperm sample at home, that she would bring it in for 2 different babies. And that she didn't know that the doctor was using his own sample for 2 different babies. I just don't feel like it lines up.
Mm.
And all of the thankfulness that she did around this doctor and how much she admired him. And and then she said to my brother that she didn't want his reputation to be affected. Which it's always interesting to me when she cares more about other people's feelings than ours.
Yep.
It's always like, what? That's your reaction? We want to protect the doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. It's not the fact that your 2 daughters have been like devastated by this.
Wow.
And don't know who they are. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming I'll never really know. Yeah.
Exactly. You'll never really know. But it sounds like your father and mother didn't go together to have you and your sister plan through donor conception.
No.
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 That your
And
mom did this.
my mom did it. And I asked my stepmother, did she ever hear a story of like them trying to have kids and not being able to have kids? And she said, not at all. No story of that. And she was married to my certificate father for like, I don't know, 25 years or something. She had a long marriage with him. And she's like, never heard that part. And you're right. Like, why wouldn't it have been? I mean, I don't know what happened in the 60s. I know sperm donor wasn't like donor stuff wasn't very popular by then. And my mother always wanted many, many children, which was weird because, we didn't have good relationships,
and she kicked like 5 of you out.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Right. And didn't, I think my mom was really good with small children, but when you got an opinion and didn't like follow what she wanted you to follow, then it was always difficult. And so, yeah, it doesn't really line up that she didn't know. That comment of Susie and Cheryl probably aren't yours. I don't know how you reconcile that piece.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, looking back on how he was an important part of your life, not important, but part of it, definitely included lighting of the candles, being in his office, the closeness he had with your mother. It sounds like I don't know, I should ask you. So not only did she pick him as her doctor, as an infertility doctor, but she also picked him for his sperm sample. Do you think she knew he was using his sperm?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't really remember him much. Like, I remember him as like a tall guy. I remember At some point, he had one wife, and then at some point, he had a second wife. He got divorced somewhere in there. I remember he brought a different person with him to some of our bat mitzvahs, but somewhere there is a picture of me with him,
Hmm.
because everyone that lit a candle at a bat mitzvah goes to the side and then has a picture with the bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah person. But my mother also has photo albums that she won't share with us. So she says they're hers, and she's never letting any of the kids that she doesn't have a good relationship with see their photos. I know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's always been like that. Like, so for many, many, many years, all of the siblings that don't talk to her have wanted pictures. And she has just said, no, they don't belong to you.
Oh,
So in there is my sister with our father, our birth father, and me and my birth father.
wow.
Yeah.
Have you been following these fertility fraud? Well, in this case, where doctors use their own sperm on their patients, but unknowingly instead of being picked, like they will use their.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like still legal in some states. They're trying to make it illegal,
Completely
but
bizarre.
in the 60s, I mean, there's hardly any regulation now around donor conception, but in the
Yeah.
60s it was.
And I don't know if he was just trying to be helpful. Like could it be that maybe, especially, I mean, I'm assuming that he didn't do it like to hundreds of women, because so far I've just found two besides my mother, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't, is it possible that in his mind he was being helpful? I don't know. I don't really know how to think about it. Um, I think about like the intention of somebody, and of course, being a doctor comes with power, but like, is that what he tried to do? Like, he showed up at all of our family functions, and I don't know. And then he's having a picture with his daughter, and he knew,
He
like,
knew you were his daughter.
probably.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, my mom went because she couldn't get pregnant.
Of course. Of course. Yep.
So, and I don't think my parents were having much sex at that point. So, because I remember my father saying, I don't know how my mom kept ever, like your mom ever kept getting pregnant. We hardly ever had sex. Too much information from your father,
Right.
but yes, but that's what he was like. So the doctor was beside me in pictures, taking pictures of the bat mitzvah girl, like he's a guest at the party, but he's really my father,
Oh. And
you
he
know.
passed in 89, was it?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
Long time ago. And, I mean, social media is amazing. I don't really think I look much like my half brother, but my half sister, there's pictures of her on Instagram that I thought were me. Like, there's a
Wow.
picture of her in overalls, and she's like, I don't know, 15 or something. And I looked at it and I'm like, she has the exact same face as me. Like, I had to really look twice at her. Like, same forehead, same hair, same freckles. I have a little bit more freckles, but very similar noses. Very like, I mean, and when I talked to her, we had a couple of good long texts. She said, I look a lot like people in her family.
Mm.
And then she stopped. And I think the weird thing is, like, being conceived by a doctor is, I don't think his kids want to know. And I don't blame them, probably. Like, who am I to her? Like, I'm nobody. I'm just got her dad's DNA. And she doesn't, I think, want it. She said to me, I don't understand why my father would do this. And so I thought, like I said, well, maybe he was trying to help his long-time patient. He already delivered 5 of my mom's children. And maybe he was trying to be helpful. And she's like, I don't get why he would do that. And then she never answered any of my emails after that, like, in any of my texts. She's seen them, she read them, but she hasn't ever answered me.
Oh, we were just talking about that this weekend, where you start communication with a half sibling and then
Mm-hmm.
they go silent, and then they pull away or block you.
Yeah.
That is so painful, especially when you're just starting.
Yeah. And it's so, like, and I think I've posted a bit on Facebook on different sites, but I'm so tired of trying to get people to want to like me.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point I was texting her and I'm like, I feel like I'm begging. I kind of am begging. Like at some point, the one that upset me was like, I said to her, like, you don't have to have a relationship with me, but I really want just two things if you don't want to have a relationship with me. I need pictures of your dad because I can Google him, but like, honestly, he graduated from university in the 20s. So that's one of the pictures, him in the 20s. It's really,
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, he's like 25 years old, whatever he is. It's not a good, I can't tell. And then there's my brother found one picture of him at his bar mitzvah and sent it to me. And I'm like, I don't know. The guy's in his 70s. Like, it's hard to tell. I think, like, I can see a little bit of similarities, but I want more pictures. So I asked for if she has any pictures that she doesn't mind sending me, and also any biology of what's running in his side of the family. Like, is there heart conditions? Is there, like, what is there? And she wouldn't tell me, and like no response. And that one, I was like, how much does it take for you to tell me? Like, don't even share a picture, but tell me just what's in my family, what's in my history.
You never received your medical history?
No,
Oh, that's unfair.
right? Like, what did your dad pass away from? After that, I found a first cousin who has also been lovely. And so her and her mom, who was my father's sister, um, gave me lots of information, or my father's cousin. Yeah, she was my father's cousin. She gave me lots of information. Like, I didn't know that my grandfather had committed suicide, or, that there's different illnesses in the family. Clearly, there's some mental health stuff in the family. Like, I'd like to know a little bit about some stuff,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like, what makes me me? Like, biology.
So
Yeah.
where are you at right now with the, I guess, the paternal side of your family? Are you speaking with any of them? Or
Um,
or any of them responding to you, I should say?
no, no. So I tried to contact one of my half brothers is a lawyer, and I tried to contact him, and he never responded. My half sister is an amazing film director in Toronto, and I'm always so impressed with her, and I want to like kind of reach out to her. Yeah, and I have a couple of really amazing distant cousins, and all of my father's sisters were artists and taught in Toronto and do amazing paintings. So I'm always so impressed with that side. But no, one of my aunts contacted me, um, and I think stopped talking to me when she found out that I had contacted my half sister. She, I think, thought it was inconsiderate. Um, and I said, like, I don't really know why I should be a secret, and why nobody else has to be uncomfortable. And I was hopeful that someone might want to know that there's a biological relation, a very close relation. Like, I'm a half sister. And at that point, I think I was so hopeful. And now I'm like, I guess at some point you kind of just accept it. Like, you know, yeah,
It's unbelievable. People don't have any empathy for how devastating this was for you, and they act as if you're being inconsiderate by
yeah,
reaching out to them for.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Meanwhile, I did
yeah.
absolutely nothing.
No.
I mean, none of us did when we don't know who our parents are. Like, I I did nothing. I lived my life well. I just, raised my own daughter, try to be a good, loving, kind person. And um yeah, it was just so, and I really value family. Like, I think all of my siblings would say that I'm the one that gets everyone together. Um like, I really value family. Um so in my mind, I think, wow, if someone contacted me and said they were my half sister, and I don't really care how, but if you are my biological half sister, I would say in a second, for sure, let's meet.
Yeah.
Um, and I know the people that helped me were like, you just had really bad luck. Like everyone you contacted was like, nope, nope, you know. But this first cousin of my father's lives in Vancouver, and she has been more than lovely. She went through, like, I think my father was one of 11 kids. So she went through like every relative she could remember, um, and told me what she knew about people's health. Um, I mean, she's a cousin and they didn't know each other well. But anything she could remember, she was more than happy. So that was a blessing. And the DNA people that helped me, like, you could not come across nicer people.
Mm.
So that's really good. But yeah, no, I haven't. Anybody on my dad's side is just that first cousin. That she was the one that I contacted and said, like, she contacted me and said, we're first cousins. How are we first cousins and we don't know each other? And then I
Yep.
said, on your tree is the doctor that, you know, I sent her a picture of my birth announcement and said, is that your dad, your cousin on your tree? And she was like, oh my God, yes. How was he on there? And then she said, wouldn't it be funny if you were one of those people that the baby doctor was your father? And we like laughed on the phone. And I'm like, and we both said, oh, he was too old. Because
Oh,
we really sort of thought maybe it was like an affair,
yeah.
right? And I guess that's maybe people's first assumption, is that it's an affair. And I was like, well, my mom was definitely unhappily married, and was probably lonely. My birth certificate father traveled a lot for his job and wasn't around a lot. And so I thought, well, I wouldn't blame someone that was really lonely, to want to connect with someone. And maybe that's what happened. But when he was so much older, I thought, well, that can't be him. Um, and I always thought, like, yeah, and then when she was telling me about my birth father, she was like, well, he was pretty grouchy. I was like, well, then who would have, and my aunt who went to him also said he was grouchy. So then I was like, well, that would be unusual for somebody to have an affair with this much older, grouchy man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Didn't really line up.
And of course, there's no records. And not that they would give them to you anyway, of any sort of, whether this was kind of an unofficial donor conception, or even if it was, a more official one in the 60s. It's not like you can call that doctor's office or that clinic and get confirmation of that, because it's probably considered private medical records if they even took note of it.
Right. If they even took note of it. I did call in here we have like a college of physicians where people can make complaints, and asked if there was any complaints, and they said nope, never a patient complaint.
Oh, about him, about your
Yeah,
biological father? Okay.
yeah, like just to see if anybody had ever reported anything,
Yeah.
to find out anything. But no, he was a very well regarded physician. Like even my other cousins, like one of my, not the aunt that used him, they all knew him too. Like he was very well known in Toronto.
Well, certainly unethical to use your own sperm in a
right.
in for your patients that come to you for fertility issues.
And when one of my siblings contacted her and talked to her about it, and at first she said absolutely not. So she was definitely, I mean, I just think the whole thing was so hidden. I just think that she knew. I feel like she knew.
Mm-hmm.
And that she was still saying, and then to worry, because in the same conversation, she was worried about his reputation, which I think would be a pretty weird worry if you didn't know.
Right? Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you be shocked and feel violated or feel, right? The people that I know that are in similar situations would have felt absolutely violated, whether I've read about them on the media, in the media, or in social networking. Um, it would seem like they're pressing charges or they're reporting it as like
Yeah.
a violation.
Yeah.
But my mother was like, we don't want to ruin his reputation.
Oh, I think that speaks volumes there. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Are you in any of the donor conceived forums or Facebook groups?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had contact with people around like um, telling more of my story or doing some research. There's a reporter in Toronto that wanted me to do more research and then possibly to do a story. And I don't know if I want to like put my energy into it.
Right? Because, yeah, then I know
It's
what you're talking
hard,
about.
right?
Yep.
Like do I want this to be my focus or do I want to like appreciate my life and feel grateful? And like 4 years later is pretty exhausting, right? Around um, how much do I focus on a family that doesn't want to know I exist
Mm-hmm.
and a birth father that did that for whatever reason and then knew of me, saw me at all of my siblings' bar mitzvahs because they were all older than me, so I would have seen him um, at different, like when I was quite young, at different bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, along with weddings here and there. And saw me, knew I was his child, didn't do anything about it or didn't, I don't know what he would have done. But like the whole thing is just so, so not only do I have not a good relationship with my mom, I never had a great relationship with my dad because he left. And then I find out that he's actually not my father, even though this is my other issue. I mended fences with him because he had cancer, spent the last few years of my father's life with him. He didn't actually raise me at all. So I was really starting to get to know him and went through him passing away and then found out he wasn't my father.
Mm.
Right. So it was like,
Mm-hmm.
what on earth? Like, I also felt resentment towards my mother for watching me suffer growing up without a father and thinking that was my father when he actually wasn't my father.
Yeah.
And I was so sad as like a teenager to not have a father. And and I pictured him. I was like, why isn't he in my life more? Why doesn't he know me? And then I found out he actually isn't my father. So I'm like sad about not having contact with someone that wasn't actually even my biological father.
Mm.
Like it was just the whole thing was so felt kind of callous and like treated, yeah, callously.
Mm.
Like my feelings
Mm.
weren't cherished.
Oh, that's sad.
Mm-hmm. It felt sad. It does feel sad. Mm-hmm.
Susan, if people want to contact you and I don't know, maybe shoot you an email or a message, would you be willing to do that?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
What would be the best way to reach you?
I mean, people can find me on social media if they want, on Facebook, or they can email me.
What do you want to get? Are you okay giving out your full name for Facebook
Yeah,
lookups or okay?
sure. Yeah. It's Susan Ockrent-Johnston. So it's Ockrant-Johnston with a T.
I'll put your full name in the show notes. You want to
Thanks.
give an email address as well, or would you
Sure.
prefer messages?
Email's fine too. It's
Okay.
Susan_Ockrent@hotmail.com.
I will put those ways to contact you in the show description.
Thank you.
Oh, Susan, thank you for sharing so much of your story. I had no idea that you were donor conceived, and we often have people asking for a DCP story. It's still so hard to figure out. You still don't have so many answers because your biological father is gone, and your mother doesn't speak with you. But thank you for sharing your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lily.
These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. If you are an NPE and would like to share your story, I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.